What if the key to solving some of medicine's toughest puzzles was hidden in plain sight, in a part of our DNA that for decades was just dismissed? Well, today we're diving into how AI is finally cracking that code, and it is a massive game changer.
So let me ask you this. Imagine you've got this instruction manual for your body, the book that explains exactly how you're built and how you work, but 98% of it is written in a language you can't understand. For a really long time, that's pretty much the world geneticists were living in.
Because, and this is a wild number, a staggering 98% of our DNA doesn't directly make proteins. For years, this huge part of our genome was kind of ignored. Some people even called it junk DNA.
But as it turns out, it's not junk at all, not even close. This non-coding genome is more like a super sophisticated control panel for our entire body. You see, that other 2% of our DNA, that's the part that holds the blueprints for proteins, the building blocks of our cells. But this 98%, it's like the director of the whole construction project. It's packed with millions of genetic switches that tell our genes when to turn on, when to shut off, and exactly how loud to be.
And this control panel is absolutely critical. Here's why. When doctors are trying to diagnose a rare genetic disorder, they usually only look at that 2% of protein-coding genes. And the result? For a whopping 60% of patients, the tests come back empty, no answers. This huge gap is what's known as missing heritability. And for years, scientists have had a strong hunch that the clues were hiding in that other 98%.
Okay, so how do you go about finding answers that are hidden in what is essentially the vast dark matter of our genome? Well, the very first step was to create a map.
And let me tell you, the challenge here is immense. It's like trying to find a single disease-causing typo somewhere in a book with 3 times billion letters, but you have no idea which sentences or even which chapters are the important ones. That's the scale of the problem we're talking about.
So the first part of the solution was this monumental effort by researchers to create a really detailed map for this unexplored territory.
Using a super powerful technique, a team of scientists went in and systematically tested over 145,000 of these potential genetic switches. They specifically did this in neural stem cells, which are so important for how our brains develop early on. By measuring the activity of every single switch, they created the first ever functional atlas, a map that shows the most important parts of the regulatory system that builds our brains.
And here's the really cool part. The map worked. The researchers found this super clear, direct link. Genes that were controlled by the most active switches were themselves way more active. This was the proof they needed. Their atlas wasn't just a list, it was accurately pinpointing the most critical levers on that genetic control panel.
So now they have this incredible new map. But a map is only useful if you can navigate it efficiently, right? And to do that, they turned to artificial intelligence.
They built a deep learning model, and they gave it a fantastic name, Brain Magnet. What they did was they fed it their entire NCRE atlas, all 145,000 switches, all their activity levels, and the AI learned. It learned to predict, just by looking at a DNA sequence, how active a switch would be. In other words, it learned the language of the genetic control panel.
And this just shows you what a huge leap forward this is. The old way? Oh man, that was slow, painstaking lab work, testing thousands and thousands of possibilities. Now with Brain Magnet, it's almost instant. It can scan a DNA sequence and basically say, hey, see that one letter change right there? That's the one most likely to break this switch.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing in theory, but the real question, the one that really matters is, does it actually work in the real world? This is where the science gets personal. The team basically unleashed Brain Magnet on a massive dataset from the Genomics England 100,000 Genomes Project. They were literally hunting for answers for thousands of patients with neurodevelopmental disorders who, up until now, had no genetic diagnosis.
And you can see their main goal right here in their own words from the paper. They wanted to use the AI to sift through millions of these non-coding variants and prioritize the very few that might actually be causing the disease to finally give some answers to these families. So let's look at one specific real-world case. There was a family dealing with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, a disorder that damages the nerves in your arms and legs. The standard genetic tests, the ones that only look at that 2% of genes, they came up completely empty. This family had no diagnosis. So the researchers ran the family's non-coding DNA through the AI, and boom, Brain Magnet immediately flagged a single-letter mutation in one specific genetic switch. It predicted this tiny change would be highly disruptive.
And here's the kicker. That switch was linked to a gene, RAB7A, that scientists already knew can cause this exact disease. So they went to the lab, they tested it, and sure enough, the AI was right. The family's mutation crippled the switch, which in turn messed up the gene. They finally had a diagnosis for something called an enhanceropathy, a disease caused not by a faulty gene, but by a broken genetic switch.
This one case is so much more than just a single success story. It's a powerful proof of concept for what this new approach means for the future of genetic medicine.
So what this research has delivered is this incredible 1-2 punch. First, you have the NCRE atlas, which gives scientists the map, showing them where all the important switches are. And then you have Brain Magnet, which acts like a precision tool, a magnet, to pull the one important mutation out of that vast landscape that could be causing a disease.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. This whole framework transforms the diagnostic journey. Instead of being lost in a giant sea of data, doctors and scientists can now zero in on the variants that are most likely to matter. It could dramatically speed up the path to a diagnosis and help solve that huge problem of missing heritability.
This work has just kicked the door wide open to a whole new part of our genome. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? With tools like these, how many more medical mysteries are just sitting there, waiting to be solved, hidden in the 98% of our DNA we're only now, finally, beginning to understand?